Hello, sweet friends. Welcome back to the studio. Let's make our XL Classic Bowl together. This is the fourth installation in our Classic Bowl series. All of these bowls are made to nest very nicely inside one another. This is the largest that we have. So I've got an example here for you to see in greenware. I've also got the optional cutter here off to the side, and I've already cut out my bottom piece. It's really important that you do this first and you make sure that this piece is nice and set up. Because of the diameter, we don't want it to slump later on in the project. So we have free templates for you online. You can go ahead and print. You have to print it 4 times, cut and tape. Because of the size of this project, I have opted to do 2 smaller slabs, and we will splice together in the middle, bringing that slab into one large shape for the bowl. If you can roll out a slab that accommodates this template without having to splice, I highly recommend that because you have less points of weakness, less joins, less chances of warping and cracking that way. But for my studio limitations, I have to do it in 2 pieces, which is honestly kind of par for the course for me. For larger pieces, I end up splicing a lot. Now that I'm done trimming, you can see a little bit of a closer up on how I do this. I'm going to do my first cut on top. The second cut will be underneath. So you see there, that's the angle I'm going for. Now, my next piece of clay, I have to do the opposite so that it seats in there nicely with this one. Set that piece off to the side as carefully as you can. Even though it's still half the template, it's still a lot of clay that we're managing. I've already pre-rolled my texture. I opted to do a roller on the top side here, and then when we flip over to the blank side, I'll show you how I add the additional texture in. So again, we are going to line up our template, making sure we're keeping track of which end we're working on. So now my centerpiece is facing the 3 o'clock mark, and this is where I will cut underneath the piece of paper instead of on top. That way, when I join them together, they lock in nicely. I then repeat all of my steps to cut off all the excess. And then again, on the other end, I'm adding my 1/4 inch. After you've done the project a couple times, you'll know exactly how much extra clay you need. So let's go ahead and join these 2 pieces. I'm going to take my serrated rib here, and I'm going to go ahead and score both sides, taking care not to bend these pieces of clay too far out of shape because we don't want to create any kind of issues at that joint. I am going to move this piece over a little bit more just to set myself up for a good join, and then I will slide them in, line them up best as possible. There is a little bit of leeway on the top, which is that smaller curve. So if you do misalign, try to misalign up top, not on the rim, which is the longer arch on the bottom. Remember, we're building this upside down. So technically this bowl is, the lip is facing me and the bottom is facing away from myself. And we will trim the bottom part. So if you have extra there, no problem. I really try to make sure that I keep the rim as level as possible. That just makes it a little bit easier for me to level out further down the line. So I am going to give really good pressure here. Because of my texture, I do have to be careful that I'm not smearing too much, but because the maker of this texture roller also has stamps that you can fill in the places where the roller doesn't quite impress as deeply as you'd like, or places where you end up blending out the pattern. So I'm not so much worried about losing the pattern here at the seam because I know I can come back in and fill that in. I did roll a small coil here. If there are big gaps while you're splicing, you want to make sure that you're getting that taken care of right away. We're only going to stretch the clay further from here. So if you already have a gap in this seam, it will just exaggerate as the process goes on. Once we get it on the form, it is going to create a little bit more stress. So you really do want to make sure while it's flat on your work surface that you are making it as seamless and as joined as possible. I'm going to add a little additional pressure here. Like I said before, Coal Mountain Pottery, who makes this roller, also has stamps that you can isolate. So I'm just filling in those areas that I had to smooth out the texture. I love this feature. So once I'm done with this side, I'm going to then do an old baker's trick, which is roll up this clay onto a rolling pin, and that's how I'm going to transport it. When you are lifting this much clay, it puts a lot of stress on that middle joint that we just put together. And because we haven't even sealed it up on the other side, your chances of cracking and pulling that clay apart are very high. I have done this. It's very frustrating. So I'm just taking a wooden rolling pin. I'm going to set this gently down back onto the work surface in reverse. Sorry again for the arm. And then I will go ahead and add my additional texture on the inside here. So I will take this chance to smooth out the inside of that initial seam. Remember, this bowl will now have 2 seams. We really want to treat those right so we're not having any cracking there. So I'm going to come in and roll. Now, since I have this arc-shaped piece of clay, rolling the roller straight across just isn't going to work. So instead of going up and down, what I have chose to do is go at the diagonal. Because this roller is designed to be seamless, I can just match up the pattern with my last pass, and then it makes a seamless pattern going all the way. Because the nature of the print is kind of topsy-turvy, there's not really a rhyme or reason to it. I can go ahead and do this diagonal and you can't even tell a difference with the inner pattern versus the outer pattern. Adding texture to the inside is, again, an aesthetic choice. I like to do it, but you don't have to. You could have very well left these blank and done whatever your surface decoration preference is. Okay, let's get beyond prep and actually make this bowl. Go ahead and add the barrier of your choice. I like to use cornstarch as my release agent. Burns off cleanly in the kiln, and I'm able to still reclaim all of this clay with the cornstarch. It does not affect the chemistry of my clay, so I prefer to do this, and it's very easy to find in most grocery stores. I'll set this clay off to the side and then grab my banding wheel. During this process, it may have been easier for me to put the clay up without the banding wheel, but because the rolling pin is in there, I needed just a little bit of leeway on the bottom. This is the most finicky part because we have to get this large piece of clay wrapped around the jig. There was a little bit of movement of my clay here, but it did not affect the final product. Just make sure that you're keeping the clay as upright as possible. Having the jig involved gives you a third hand. Trying to make a project like this without central support, I think, would be way more frustrating than just kind of working with this clay this way. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap the clay around, making sure I have full contact all the way around the bottom. This is really important. That is our rim. That is how it's going to keep our rim level. And we just want to make sure we don't have any sagging off the pot. You can see by the way my clay moved, the moisture of my clay. It's still wet enough to maneuver, but not so wet that I'm leaving sticky fingerprints behind. Now remember, we're wrapping kind of a rectangular shape around a circle. So we have to get that top part tucked in. The best way I know how to do this is to hold the seam with my hand and then I wave the clay in, as you can see here. What I'm doing is just working from the back, so opposite of my seam, and I'm just slowly working and waving the clay. The warmth from my hand and the pressure is going to stretch this clay and mold it. I do not close the seam prior to doing this because the clay moves so much into that seam. You need to have freedom of movement there. If you wanted to tack the seam down just at the bottom, you could do that, but I find that after I bring and taper in this bottom for the classic bowls, I do have to trim my seam anyhow. So if I close it, I'll just have to open it back up. So I'm going to always keep it nice and steady with my opposite hand. You don't want the clay flapping out. You want it to be nice and secure. If you've not used our jigs before, it's really an amazing thing. You can start to feel the jig through the clay and you can feel when you have full contact. It's something that I can describe, but honestly, until you do it, you just don't really know what the feeling is. But you can feel when the clay is making complete contact. So now that I have those ripples at the top, I'm going to start to taper in and get my seam lined up here. Now I did bring in footage from another video here. If you notice the background, good for you, because my other video just didn't have quite a close up as this one does. So I really wanted you to see the wave action of the clay bringing in and then how I taper in the seam. Again, I'm not fussing too much about lining up my pattern here because I am going to come in with my stamps and I will re-stamp the areas that I smooth out with this seam. Now I'm feeling good with how lined up I am, so I'm going to go ahead and score and add some slip. When you are adding slip to your pieces, please slip the piece of clay that is furthest away from the jig. I do on occasion get slip between the clay and the plastic, and it is a little bit harder to remove. So one of the ways that I negate that is to add slip on the outer piece of clay so I can really control where it's going. If you do smush some moisture in between, it'll just take a little bit more patience. You can still get the jig out. It just takes a little bit more time and just a little bit more force to do that. So light touch with my seam here. I'm just bringing in everything, matching that up, really making sure I have full contact with both of my scored edges here. And then I'm going to just apply pressure as I move up the jig. You will do some more shaping after we close this down. We are close enough at this point to just get this seam taken care of, and then we will finish shaping the top. As you can see, we still have some work to do up there. She's a big bowl. This is a really big project, so I would take your time. If you've not built anything by hand this size yet, give yourself some grace, give yourself some patience, and just understand that it is a little bit more finicky. It's going to take a little bit more back and forth and maneuvering, but it's really worth it because the bowl is so gorgeous. So back to our original footage here, I want to explain how we cut off that excess clay at the top. So I will start with an angled cut. Once I feel like I'm close enough to the jig, the first cut has got to be at an angle. If your first cut is flat at this point, you will cut the clay beneath the jig, making it too short for your project, because we are going to cut and then we are going to press in, cut, press in, and then do a final cut. I do 3 cuts on the bottom for this, 2 angled, and then once I know that the clay is completely flat against the jig, I will do my last flat cut. Now, if you do happen to cut beneath the jig line, that's okay. Just get it as level as possible. You may have to make your bottom piece just a little bit bigger. You can go ahead and make adjustments that way. You don't have to toss the whole piece. Once we have it level, we're going to go ahead and score the bottom while it's still on the jig. This is the easiest way to do it. And then I am going to set this big piece off to the side while I prepare my bottom piece. Now, I've had my bottom piece sitting on a diatomaceous earth mat to make sure that it's nice and stiff and easy to work with. If you've got too much flex with your bottom piece, it will sink into the bowl, making your job just a little bit harder there. So I'm going to go ahead and baker's flip this. I like to put it in between 2 wear boards. And then I am going to do some work on the upper rim here. I like to take my brayer here. It's just a 1-inch brayer. And I like to go around the rim. This does a couple things. It makes sure that I'm making full contact. It also rounds my rim a little bit, so it decreases my chance of chipping while you're stacking and nesting. Remember, these bowls are made to nest one inside the other. So there's going to be a lot of instances where the bowl might hit the rim. If you've got too sharp a corner, that can easily chip. So that helps to stay ahead of that problem. And then it gives me a nice even surface to cut. So as I'm raising this clay up a little bit, I'll use the jig again, just like we did on the bottom, to make sure it's nice and even. If your texture does go up into the lip, I would encourage you to smooth that out just a little bit. If the texture runs a little deep into the lip, that could also create some cracking issues. So I'm going to go ahead and level this off. Not as much clay on the bottom here or on the top that we were working on. The most clay that you're going to take off will be on the bottom piece. So now it's almost time to remove this. I just want to give you a quick note here. All of our jigs are made for easy removal. We have that nice handle on there for you. When you are removing a piece this large, I encourage you to just please take your time. I like to put my hand right against where the crossbar and the jig meet, and then I like to go around and release the clay just a little bit. We've put a lot of pressure on it, so we want to just twist and turn. I'm constantly turning the jig, and then I'm also supporting the clay with my left hand. Once this jig pops, it's going to come out quickly. So if you're giving too much pressure, you can just collapse your form or dent your form. So again, I'll just reiterate at this point, the larger the jig, the longer the release takes. And I want you to just take your time here. Once it gives, I like to reseat it a little bit, make sure I didn't smush anything out of round. Sometimes I'll put the jig back in, reform, take it out, see how it looks, put it back in. It's kind of like a big rim rounder. So I'm going to flip this yet again. Let's get the bottom on. I can just put the bottom on my work surface and bring the bowl on top of that. But for this, I am thinking that I want to just keep the jig in as long as possible. So I'm going to attach this bottom with right now as the bowl is upside down. So I bring my bottom piece over here, and I like to use the banding wheel for this because it is a sizable piece. You can see how set up it is. Like I said, I had it sitting on a diatomaceous earth mat, which was drawing the moisture while I was working on my piece. And then I go ahead and I'm going to score all around the edges for this. After I'm done scoring, I apply a really generous layer of my vinegar slip here. That's just white distilled vinegar and my clay body. And I make sure that I have it really, really well saturated, making sure that my score marks are deep on both sides, on the bottom and on the main pot. And then I will go ahead and switch this out and bring this bottom piece right onto the top. You might get some slumping in the middle, but it really, once you dry it upside down, that flattens out. You can put a weight bag in this when you're done, if that is your preference, if you're having too much of a bulge. Or I sometimes choose on my pieces to pop in the bottom there to kind of elevate the foot, and I call that faking a foot. So our optional cutter should be perfect for yours. If for some reason your clay runs a little bit thinner like mine does, you might have a little bit of extra. Or if your clay is a little bit on the thicker side, you might have to just roll out your bottom just a little bit flatter for that. I go ahead and I add pressure all the way around the edge, and then I'm going to come in and I'm going to trim this bottom. This is an optional step. If you'd like to just blend it in, you can just blend it. I like to take off a little bit of that corner from the bottom to keep that slope of the bowl going in a continuous way. Now, if I have really noticeable separation between the foot and the body, I will roll out a small coil and I will fill that in. This is the perfect time to do it. And then I will grab clay that is the same consistency as the clay that I'm using. So this clay that I'm rolling came from the pieces that I cut off of the slab when I cut out my template. I like to do this around the bottom here. It fills in your gaps and it keeps a nice even slope. But you can do any kind of decorative element to your foot. Just because I'm doing this at this point doesn't mean that you're going to have to. You just kind of have to move with what the clay is doing. If it needs a little extra filling, then you can go ahead and do that in. I love to use my shark fin at this point. I like to use the curved side of it for the foot treatment because it just shaves off the perfect amount of clay and it smooths in the process. It's a really precise. Our shark fin is pretty rigid, but also does have some flexibility to it. So it's a really great trimming tool for the foot. So I will keep going round and round, fussing with this bottom a little bit. I normally do carve into my bottoms, but I think for this bowl set, I am not going to because I like the blueberries going all the way down. And I think that I will just do something with the glaze down toward the bottom. So any clay that I pull up, I take a metal rib to trim off the bottom. I do more of my finishing work at leather hard. I try not to do too much here because I just kind of end up smudging and smushing at this point. I take a finishing sponge to make sure it's pretty, to make sure my connection is solid, which is so important. We're going to do a lot of work on the inside as well, but this outside point, we really want to make sure it looks nice. After I flipped and removed the jig, I now have full access. Look how beautiful this bowl is. I'm just so thrilled with these. I take this is a diamond core sculpting tool. I love this one, and I go down and I'm making sure that I'm blending that seam in. You could add a coil down here if you'd like to have more of a slope, but I don't want to lose my texture. And I find that the compression from the outside is suitable enough to keep any cracking at bay, but then I also come in with my studio brush and vinegar. I will pull up a little bit of clay here at the bottom. This is best taken care of at leather hard. I just want to move any clay schnibs out of the cracks so I can come through with my vinegar brush and make that nice and smooth. Now remember, on the inside of this bowl, if you have spliced your clay, you do have two seams here, okay? One of the seams would be the really obvious seam, the one where we've closed up the whole bowl. Our initial seam where we splice together is kind of hard to find, and it starts to go at a little bit of an angle because of the way we smush the clay over the jig. So this one, once you find it, do your best to smooth that out, but because of the pressure of the jig, it's pretty well buttoned up on the inside. I will come back after this is leather hard and make sure my rim is where I want it. I always go over with my brush, my vinegar brush at this point, and then also at leather hard, just to be sure that I don't have any cracking. It's such a beautiful project. This is a large piece of clay, so give yourself a couple tries. And you could also, I thought about maybe bringing these into an oval shape, or you could do some points at the rim. You could do some decoration at the rim. There's so much you can do. Thank you for hanging out with me for our XL Classic Bowl. I know there were a lot of steps to this, but I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's a really beautiful project, and it nests beautifully with the other three shapes. If you've got any questions, please drop a comment below. Let me know if you've tried our classic bowls. I've got a lot of other tips and tricks and videos available to you on socials, so you can find those all in the description box. Okay, you guys, happy making. I hope you give this project a shot, and we'll see you again soon.